Hello everyone. So today I'm going to explain how we are going to use the application.properties file in Spring Boot applications. As you know, nowadays basically Spring Boot is built top of the Spring and contains all the features of the Spring, right? And it is becoming the very popular for developing the easy development of all the applications, right? Means we don't need to bother about the configurations kind of thing. It will take care all the things. Only we just need to focus on the main code logic. So like uh, so for that, there is one properties file that whenever we are going to create any applications, Spring Boot applications, so then it's contains one application properties file. As you can see over here, I've created one project, Spring Boot project, which having this application.properties file. And here basically we can define some properties values, and this is basically contains like key and value property, key and value pair. Like as you can see over here, if we define the, it's a key value pair. Okay, so now the purpose of this means what is the purpose of this application dot properties, that I'm going to explain over here. What are the basically major roles of this one in Spring Boot applications? uh, like Purpose of this application.properties file is used to write the application related properties into that file. This file contains the different configurations which is basically required to run the applications in different environment, and each environment will have the different types of property defined, like whatever we required. So let's say we are having three environment. One is like having development, then UAT, then staging, and the production. So if we having the database, defining the database URL and username password, so those are basically vary based on the environment, right? Means username password obviously it will be vary. So those kind of thing based on the environment also we can define in this properties file. So these are the uh, this is the kind of basic benefit for defining all those properties over here. So the major things, like suppose if we want to see some examples like for using the values over here. Let's say if we want to change the port number of this application. So while running this application, let me run this one, run as Java application. Yeah, as you can see over here, this Spring Boot application started in 8080 port. How it is started? Because embedded Tomcat is there, and this particular server, the default port is 8080. So that's why this particular application default run in the 8080 port. Now let's say already if some application is already run in the 8080 port, then maybe it will give us the port already in use. So due to this, maybe we need to, there's some requirement that we are not able to run this particular application in 8080 port. So for this reason, maybe we need to run this application in different port. So for that, we need to set the port. So how we are going to change the port over here? So here, actually there is a one properties. Let's say server.port equals to 8081. So if we define this one, then up instead of 8080 port, the default port, it will start the application in 8081. So let's say it's again it will restart it again. Now you can see now Tomcat started on the 8081. Okay, so in this way basically we can use the properties. There are also some other properties that I'm going to explain over here. For connecting with the MySQL driver, like how we are going to define the properties file over here. So for that basically there are certain properties, like first of all connecting with the MySQL database server, we need to define the URL like data source. So how we are going to doing that? Using the properties like spring.dataSource dot URL. So here basically we are going to define the URL. So what will be the URL? There are certain syntax that we need to follow, like JDBC, then colon, then MySQL. Okay, over here this is the syntax basically. Then after that we need to define the local host. Okay, so whatever the host it is, in your case maybe it will be different, it will be some kind of IP or something. Then after that we need to define the port. So what the port is for MySQL is default is 3306. Then over here we need to define the schema name. Okay, so this is the defining this is the way for defining the URL. Next we are defining the username. So how we are going to define the username? So this will be the common like spring.data source dot username. So then we need to define the over here like username, whatever the username it is. Then after that we need to define the password. Okay, password also like we can define over here. And then we need to define the like driver class name. So how we are going to define this one is spring.data source dot driver hyphen class hyphen name. Okay, so over here like com dot, so for MySQL the driver name is com dot MySQL dot jdbc dot driver. So this is the way basically we can, okay, driver, this is the way basically that way we are going to connect with the MySQL. So this is the one options. Another properties over there also, like if we want to, instead of MySQL, if we want to connect with the MongoDB database. So for connecting with the MongoDB database, we need to write few lines. How we are going to doing this one? Like spring dot data dot mongodb dot host, okay, equals to, maybe it's a local host. Then we need to define spring.data.mongodb. So here basically we need to define the port. Okay, port equals to, for example, for MongoDB the default port is 27017. Okay, and then we need to define the database, means schema name basically database. So whatever the database it is, let's say like maybe employee, okay, or payroll system, payroll. Okay, in this way basically we can define the MongoDB. So this is the basically we can use for this MongoDB. Here also, like if we want to like if we want to display the SQL, means suppose in application we have used the Hibernate, and we want to uh, means we are fetching some data from the database. Also maybe if we want to update some data into database, or maybe inserting, insert, delete, or whatever the like basic SQL is basically used for doing some operations. If we want to print those SQL into the like into the console, means here, means whenever we are trying to doing something, so if we want to print those SQL into various, so for that also we are having some properties, something like spring dot jpa dot show hyphen SQL equals to true. If we use this one, then it will basically print the SQL into the console. Okay, so this is also one of the like valuable feature or valuable key value properties over here. Using this, these are the basically used for like readability purpose, right? Means if, for we can easily debugging purpose, means if we want to see like what are the basically SQL is basically used, so we need to check from the console, so we can check like what are the basically SQL are executed for this particular operations. Okay, so those are basically for debugging purpose. If we want to optimize the SQL, so in these scenarios also those are basically used. So next I will try to cover the application.properties file. You can see it is readable, but there are some other properties file actually that's called the YML file. So this is also kind of means chosen by the developer, this YML file instead of the properties file. So YML file is basically superset of the JSON and is such a convenient format for specifying the hierarchical configuration data. So YML is more readable and it is good for developing for read and write the configurations from the files. Okay, so I'll show you like how we are going to pick those things. Now if we want to like pick this data in a some, how we are going to read the data over here. Okay, so for reading the data we are basically like let's say we can create one class, and from the class we can use some kind of the annotation, right? So using this basically, but before that let me show you some YML like YML syntax. Okay, so over here application YML. Okay, application dot YML. So this is the like it is default open in this Visual Studio. uh, okay, so over here you can define the things. So how we are going to define the over here, so let me show you. So let's say like if we define this data source just for one example. Okay, so how we are going to define this one. So spring, then here tab, then data source, here tab, then like we can define the URL, so whatever the URL it is, then we can say username, then password, then driver class name. So you can see like this is the kind of the hierarchical, right? In properties file, how we are defining this one, like over here, like spring dot data source URL. So we are repeating all the things, right? But here you can see like we are not repeating all the things. It's a kind of the hierarchical it's maintaining, right? So in this way, basically, it's you can see it's a very easy to like readable, right? So this is way basically we can create this application.yml file. So there are actually lot of things that we can define over here. So for the time being, I am deleting the YML file and concentrate over this properties file. So in this properties file, basically we can define the lot of properties over there. So there are mostly 16 properties, segment kind of things, like maybe there are core properties. So core properties is there, there are a lot of things actually, like if we want to define the logging kind of thing, what is the logging, then logging pattern, all those things, then for that also there are certain properties. So that in detail level I will go in like in my next tutorial I'll trying to cover. Then caching kind of properties, we need to define mail properties, like how we are going to sending the mail. So for that there are certain properties we need to define. So those are, let's say for example, spring dot mail dot host. Okay, so here basically we need to define the mail and then host. Okay, then what is the host for the sending the email, then spring dot mail dot jndi hyphen name. So this is another property that we need to define. Then spring dot mail dot password. Okay, password. Then spring dot mail dot port. So this kind of properties basically we need to define for sending a email. Okay, so this is the one. There are certain JSON properties, like what are the data for date format. Then maybe if we want to work on some JSON related things, so for working with the JSON we are having some properties, data properties, there are lots of actually things like Cassandra compression, Cassandra config. So there are certain things, transaction kind of thing, data migration, integration properties, template properties, server properties, security properties, then testing, dev tools properties, actuator properties. So there are 16 or maybe 18 kind of properties is there that we can define over here. So there are a lot of properties actually over here. So that I will try to cover in my next tutorial. And also I will cover in my next tutorial, like loading the properties based on the environment. Like suppose for dev, UAT, stage, production, maybe we need to like having some different types of properties based on the environment. So how we are going to load those things. So that I will try to cover in my next tutorial. You guys can like have any queries, please let me know in the comment section so that I will try to cover in my next tutorial. So for that, that's all actually regarding like how we are going to define the properties in the application.properties file for Spring Boot app project. And if you guys have anything, please let me know in the comment sections. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Bye bye.